When a 400-ton steel beam needs to land perfectly on the 60th floor of a skyscraper, this is who they call. The machines cost $2 million, the job pays 6 figures, and almost nobody knows it exists. This is every level of a heavy lift crane operator's career. It starts on the ground, in the mud, in the rain, in the kind of cold that makes your fingers stop working by 7 a.m. The new hire isn't even allowed to touch the controls. He's a rigger's helper, the lowest rung on a tall ladder, hauling chains, shackles, and synthetic slings across construction sites for $15 to $18 an hour. He learns the weight of steel the hard way, by carrying it on his shoulder. He learns hand signals before he learns names. He learns that the operator in the cab, 50 feet above him, holds his life in 2 small joysticks. Most quit within the first year. The ones who stay get pushed toward the apprenticeship, a 3 to 4 year program stacked on top of 10-hour shifts, classroom nights studying load charts, wind ratings, boom angles, and center of gravity math that reads more like aerospace engineering than construction. He memorizes capacity tables until he sees them in his sleep. At the end of it, he earns his NCCCO certification, a small plastic card that quietly unlocks the rest of his life. Level 2 puts him in the seat for the first time, behind the controls of a small mobile crane, a 20 to 30-ton boom truck lifting HVAC units onto strip mall rooftops, dropping concrete pipe into trenches, setting trusses on suburban houses. Pay climbs to $25 to $30 an hour, around $55,000 to $65,000 a year. The work is steady, but the machine is small, and so is the respect. He watches the bigger rigs roll past on lowboys, 50 tons, 70 tons, 100, and he knows that's where the real money lives. He starts saving for endorsements, paying out of pocket for additional certifications, because every new sticker on his card is another $10,000 on his paycheck. Level 3 is the rough terrain crane, the 4-wheel drive workhorse of every major construction site in America. He's now pulling $35 to $45 an hour, often with per diem, travel pay, and overtime stacked on top, clearing $80,000 to $110,000 a year. He starts to understand that this job isn't really about lifting, it's about reading the wind through the cab glass, trusting the signalman's hands like sign language, and never, ever taking your eyes off the load when it's in the air. One wrong move, one moment of distraction, and a 5-ton steel beam becomes a coffin for the men working below. He sees his first accident this year. He doesn't sleep right for months. Level 4 is the all-terrain and crawler crane, 200 tons and up, the kind of machine that takes 3 semi-trucks just to ship the counterweights and another 2 days to assemble on site. Now he's pulling $50 to $65 an hour, clearing $140,000 a year, sometimes more on union jobs in New York, Chicago, Boston, or the Gulf Coast refineries where the work never stops. He travels constantly. He lives in motel rooms with thin walls and rented kitchenettes. He watches his kids grow up over FaceTime. The machine he sits in costs more than the house he's still paying off, and the project superintendent treats him like a surgeon, because in a way he is. A bad lift costs $1 million. A worse lift costs lives. Level 5 is the tower crane, and this is where the job becomes something almost spiritual. He climbs a vertical ladder 300 feet into the sky every morning, alone, with a lunchbox, a thermos, and a urine bottle, because there is no bathroom at the top. He stays up there 10, sometimes 12 hours a day, lifting the bones of a skyscraper piece by piece, and the city below has no idea he exists. He eats lunch watching helicopters fly beneath him. He feels the tower sway in the wind like the mast of a ship. Pay runs $120,000 to $180,000 a year, sometimes more in Manhattan or San Francisco, where the unions are strong and the buildings keep climbing. The view is incredible, the loneliness is worse. He sees marriages end up there. He sees men talk to themselves to stay sane. He also sees sunrises that nobody else on Earth gets to see. Level 6 is the heavy lift specialist, the master of the trade, the man they fly in from another state, sometimes another country, when a refinery vessel weighs 800 tons, or when a wind turbine nacelle has to be threaded onto a tower in a 40-mile-an-hour gust off the North Sea. These are the lifts that make the news when they go wrong, and quietly disappear into success when they go right. He commands $200,000 to $300,000 a year, sometimes more on overseas contracts in Saudi Arabia, Singapore, or the offshore wind fields of Europe. He plans single lifts for months before they happen, sitting in conference rooms with engineers twice his age, drawing on whiteboards, running computer simulations, calculating ground-bearing pressures down to the pound. Engineers ask him for advice. Site managers wait for his approval. He is the quiet center of a million-dollar choreography, and when the lift finally happens, in absolute silence, with cameras rolling and reporters watching, he barely moves the controls. The hardest lifts in the world look the easiest from the outside. Level 7 is the recovery and project lead, the man who runs the entire lifting plan for stadium builds, nuclear plant turnarounds, and bridge replacements. He doesn't always touch the controls anymore. He coordinates 12 cranes at once across a single project, manages crews of 50 riggers and operators, and answers directly to the general contractor. Pay crosses $250,000. He has gray hair now, and a bad back, and a daughter starting college on his dime. He's seen everything. He's lifted nuclear reactor vessels, dropped engines into aircraft carriers, set the spires on top of buildings he can still see from his backyard. And then there's the final level, the one nobody talks about, the level most operators never reach. He stops climbing into the cab. He buys his first crane, used, 20 years old, $750,000 financed against everything he owns, including the house. Then a second crane, then a fleet. He hires the apprentices he used to be. His company bids on bridge demolitions, refinery shutdowns, wind farm installations, hurricane recoveries. Revenue crosses 10 million, then 20, then 50. His machines now cost $2 million each, and they sit in a yard with his name on the gate, and his phone rings at 3 in the morning because somewhere in the country, a vessel is down, a tower has collapsed, a job has gone wrong, and they need the best, and the best is him. He flies private now. He never touches the controls. He sponsors apprentice programs and donates to widows' funds for operators who didn't make it home. He is the top of a pyramid that took him 40 years to climb, and at the very bottom of that pyramid, somewhere on a muddy job site tonight, a 19-year-old kid is carrying chains across the gravel for $16 an hour, his back aching, his boots wet, watching the operator in the cab 50 feet above him, wondering if he'll ever make it that far. And somewhere on a job site in the rain, a 400-ton steel beam is rising toward the 60th floor of a skyscraper, perfectly balanced, perfectly placed, and the man in the seat is 22 years old, hands shaking, wondering if he'll ever sit in the big chair, fly to job sites in another country, command a fleet, or stand at the top of his trade. The machines cost $2 million. The job pays 6 figures. Almost nobody knows it exists. And this was every level of a heavy lift crane operator's career.